When we think of the kingdoms of life, we now know that there are 5, and in some scientific circles 6, working kingdoms of organisms that all living organisms on the planet are classified into. We're going to talk today about the classification of organisms within each actual kingdom. Because for each individual organism within a kingdom, it's basically an inverted triangle where we start off very broad with the actual kingdom and we work our way down to the actual species. Now, this classification of living organisms is how all living organisms on this planet actually have this idea of this scientific name or this classification that puts them, each specific species, in a distinct group on their own. So if we look at this triangle, we see that the top is really, really wide and the bottom is really, really narrow. Okay, so the more you actually classify, or the further down this classification list you go, the more specific, or the more, centered it is towards one specific type of organisms. So we have up here the idea of the kingdom, and we're actually just going to make these divisions. Okay, so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to actually try and divide the actual triangle here into 7 equal pieces. So when we look at this inverted triangle, we see that the widest or the broadest of the bands is at the top. And this is where our kingdom is. So if we're gonna focus on animals here, because I think animals are a little bit more relatable. And we know that there are 5 different kingdoms to which all these living organisms can be clumped into. We're going to focus on kingdom Animalia. And within each kingdom, okay, we have further classifications. The next big grouping of organisms is, or big distinction is something called the different phyla, plural, phylum, singular. And what's interesting about phyla is that it is a constantly evolving idea of classification. Back in the 1990s, there were an established 11 phyla within Kingdom Animalia, and now we look at it and it's much more specific, and we've got 34 specific phyla. And this includes everything that is considered to be an animal. That can range from sea sponges and sea stars to sharks to mammals to actual insects. Okay, Kingdom Animalia is very, very broad. And within each of these phyla, there's a further division. So if, let's say, we look at human beings actually belong to Kingdom Animalia, and they belong to phylum Chordata, which means essentially with a cord. And they're referring to the fact that, we have a spinal cord. All right? Chordates all have a spinal cord. Then further down within phyla, we have specific classes, or these larger groups of organisms that belong to that actual phylum. Humans are actually classified into class Mammalia. Now this is a really big class, and it's a class of organisms that all have mammary glands, which means they all produce the females all produce breast milk to actually help nurse their young. Okay, so within mammals, we know that there are a lot of different organisms. So within the actual class of mammals, we belong to order Primates. Okay, so Primates. Now, instead of looking at this kingdom, phylum, class, I'm actually going to write in Chordata and Animalia. Now, Primates is a group of organisms that is quite large. Okay, it looks at a variety of organisms that are not necessarily bipedal, which means they walk on 2 feet, but that have very developed, okay, differences between hands and feet. Primates actually includes a variety of different organisms that we're going to actually talk about in more detail as we go down. So we go further down classification. Within Primates, we then look at the families. And we belong to family Hominidae. All right? So we belong to Hominidae. And what's interesting here is we start to see organisms that are also very closely related. Okay, within our family of organisms, we have everything from gorillas to chimpanzees to humans. So there's a variety of different primates that belong to family Hominidae. Okay, at the actual family level is where we start to see differentiation between the different primates. So, case in point, something like an orangutan, all right, is not as closely related to humans as, let's say, a gorilla or a chimpanzee. Now, within the actual family, there are different specifications, and this is where you're going to start to see words that you've actually seen before. So families can get further classified into genuses. Okay, genus. And the genus of a family or of an organism is the first word of its 2-word scientific name. All right, and actually I'm going to undo this and I'm going to write the actual genus of humans. We are genus Homo. All right, and then within different genuses, this is where it gets, for what we're going to actually be talking, as specific as it does. Okay, this is when within genuses we have specific species. Now, species we know are classified as organisms that can successfully reproduce with one another and produce viable offspring. That means they make babies that can one day make babies. And we know that different genuses of organisms are based, all of these classifications are based on different physical characteristics. Okay, different appearance, different, and we're going to see that some of these differences can be very, very minute. All right. Case in point, for the last 150 years, we've thought that there was just one species of giraffe. Turns out that depending on their actual spotting, on their actual, fur coats or hair, can determine what actual species there are. And there are, in fact, several species of giraffe. So getting back to humans, within a genus, we can have a variety of species. So for humans, the species here ends up being sapiens. All right, now this is the actual scientific classification of human beings. And if we actually want to talk about relations, all right, we share basically a subfamily with chimpanzees. We share a family with gorillas as well. Now, the further down 2 organisms go on this actual chain, the more closely related they are. So if you look at page 63 of your iBook, you'll notice that you've got 3 specific organisms there. They all belong to, kingdom Animalia, but they actually differentiate at the phylum. That's about all they got in common. Okay, and when you think about it, it is kind of logical. Humans and gorillas look a lot more alike than humans and a ladybug do. So the further down 2 organisms get on this actual classification list, the more closely related they are. And we remember that the genus and species, okay, so genus and species, names of an organism are what actually make up their scientific name. And it was a gentleman by the name of Carl Linnaeus that actually came up with this binomial nomenclature idea. Because up until then, the scientific world was just starting to use a common language, which was Latin, as opposed to French, English, German, you name it. And they were basically using physical descriptors to name these organisms. Okay? And it wasn't until he came up with this idea of a 2-name system only that we started to see that different organisms that are found in same organisms that are found in different parts of the world actually had already been identified, but they had just been named something different. So the idea of binomial nomenclature, which includes the genus and the species, binomial means 2 names. Genus is always capitalized, and species is always lowercase. You cannot, discovering an organism, you actually cannot by law name it after yourself. You can name it after someone, but not after yourself. So take a moment now to actually check out the Google Doc that's in Google Classroom. And there's a little link there to a video on Carl Linnaeus. So if you want to watch that when this video is done, you can make some notes on that. Now, in looking at the different species of bears on that same page 64, you see that there are 5 different bears on that page. And we refer to all of these commonly as bears in the English language. Black bears because they're black, grizzly bears, okay, have a rounder, bigger face. They're like a grayish brown. Brown bears are brown. Polar bears, because they live in polar regions, and panda bears. Now, if you want to look at which of these is more closely related or which one of these is not as closely related, you have to go back to their scientific names. So if you look up the actual scientific names of each of these bears, you will see that there is one bear that does not share the same genus as the rest of these bears. In fact, it's not even a true bear. All right? And what's interesting, if you take the time to actually look up the different scientific names for each of these bears, you'll see that some of them are named because of the geographic area in which they actually, live. And some of them are named because of behavioral traits. Okay, you take Ursus horribilis versus Ursus arctos or Ursus maritimus. Okay, maritimus because it spends most of its time in the water. Arctos because it lives up north. Horribilis because the person who probably documented it was terrified out of his or her skin. And I'm going to say his because it was probably a guy. So when we look at the actual scientific name of something, all right,